What's up, guys? I'm going to unbox and review the Synology DiskStation DS923 Plus. This is a 4-bay NAS, a network attached storage. So what that means is I can place 4 hard drives in here. I'm going to put 4 8TB Synology drives. And these 4 drives are going to act as one drive. And I'm going to do a RAID setup, so in case one of these fails, I can replace that one and I will not lose any of my data. I also have the Synology 10 gig network upgrade module, and because I have a 10 gig network LAN local area network set up already and I have all the necessary hardware, I will be able to access this thing very quickly. So here's everything that comes inside the box. This was covered in this little sleeve and it's very nicely packaged overall. We'll start with the power supply. It says Synology. We have a little LED indicator. That's what the plug itself looks like, and it is 100 to 240 volts. Output is 100 watts. And I have the USA plug right here for that. It comes with 2 Cat5e Ethernet cables. It comes with a little key, well, 2 of the keys, and basically what the key is designed for. So this is how you would remove the drive and put it back in, and the key basically just kind of locks that where it won't let you open it, basically. And it comes with some screws. Now the screws are mainly for the 2.5-inch drives. The 3.5-inch drives, it actually has, it's super easy to put the 3.5-inch drives in here. So you basically just lift up like this, comes out very easily, and you have these 2 little tabs on the side. It says pull right there, so you open that. You open that, so I could put these here. I'll take my Synology drive, that again, it's dedicated for this, and pop it in here. If you're wondering, do you need to get a Synology drive if you get a Synology NAS? The answer is no. You don't need to get a specific Synology NAS, Synology hard drive for this NAS. However, it is recommended that you at least get a NAS dedicated drive. So I basically put that in, the holes were lined up, I pushed that in, and we're good to go. Obviously these Synology drives are dedicated for a NAS. Okay, so there it is, and that's it. It's pretty much secure, and all I have to do is essentially slide it in. So slide it in and push it in, and that's it. Now I'm going to do the other 3 like that, and we're good to go. That's where the SATA drives go in. These are SATA drives, obviously. So it comes with a 4 gig RAM, and you can actually upgrade that. There's actually 2 slots for the RAM, and each slot can take up to 16 gigabytes. So you can, in theory, have up to 32 gigabytes of RAM. And on the bottom, you can actually put 2 NVMe SSD drives in there. So both of these are, so you open that up, and they're 2280, which is pretty much the most common standard NVMe SSD. The 2280, it's 22 millimeters wide and 80 millimeters long. I believe that's why it's called the 2280. But basically you would slide that in and then screw it in over here, slide the other one in and screw it in, and basically the NVMe drives, I believe, are used for caching. They're not required, but they probably will, could potentially speed it up depending on what you're doing. And the RAM should help because this DiskStation has its own software suite, basically. If you're doing a lot of things on it, it actually would help if you got more RAM. I'm going to try it with what it comes with, and if it's not enough, especially because I'm putting in the 10 gig, then I will upgrade that. But as of now, that's what it is. And so we have a USB, looks like a 3.0 in the front. We have the little green LEDs for the status lights, and we have 2 fans in the back, and we have the 2 gigabit Ethernet ports that come with it. We have an eSATA port. This is where the power would go in. We have another USB port in the back, and this is actually where you would slide in. So it's kind of plug and play, basically. It's super easy to essentially, I don't know if this is P1 or P2 size-wise, so let's try with P1. No, it looks like P1's not taking it. So I'll try it with the P2 screwdriver. Now this step is optional. You don't need to do this. You can actually use the gigabit ports. In fact, for the DS220 Pluses, I actually do use the gigabit ports. In fact, I don't even know if the other ones can, I don't even think the other ones can support the 10 gigs. But I've been using the gig port and it's actually been fine. So here's the 10 gig card. Normally I wouldn't hold it like this, but I'm just touching the heatsink just so I could hide the MAC address and serial number. But this is what it is, and it's literally, you just slide it in, push it in, and that's it. I just need to screw it back in, and then I can actually use this port and call it a day. And that's it. So now I'll actually use this port with my 10 gig switch, and we should be golden. So after I popped in the hard drives, I powered it on. I connected the Ethernet cord to the leftmost port, the one that it comes with. So the gigabit port, I did not connect it to the 10 gigabit port yet. I will do that in a little bit, but not right now. For setup, you go to a browser and you just type in find.synology.com and then press enter. And basically, both of these have to be on the same network. So the computer is hooked up via Wi-Fi to the same network as the Synology is, that's hooked up via Ethernet to the same network. So once you do that, it should come up and then you would click connect. Another way of doing it is if you download the Synology Assistant app, if you click search, I already ran this, that's why you saw it come up, but it finds all the Synologies within your network. So I have 2 other Synologies, and this is the new one that comes up. As you guys could see, it says not installed. So once this is done, I mean, you don't even have to let it finish. You could right click and do connect, but once it's done, you just click connect and you would go through this process. So I could either do it from here or I could just do it from the website. I could click connect. You could see pretty much the same rules, and then you're good to go. Then I'm going to click continue, and then it's going to essentially set everything up and install the software. So I'm going to click install, and yeah, I'll just download the latest file. I understand. So this is basically saying, hey, everything's going to be erased on these hard drives, but these are brand new hard drives. There's nothing on them anyways, so that's fine with me. Obviously, if you're putting hard drives in there that have stuff, you do obviously want to back that up before you put it in here, because after this, everything will be erased on these drives, just so you guys know.
Few moments later.
So after a few minutes, it gave me the prompt, so I put in my device name, I put in the account name. It doesn't let you use admin, so I put in a different one, put in a password, good to go. And then there's some other like options here and there, and basically it's like, do you want 2-factor authentication? Do you want to register this to set up for quick connect and other things like that? So I skipped that for now. So because I just want to concentrate mainly on this being used as a NAS, because this thing, honestly, it has a lot of features, because it itself has kind of really its own operating system that it runs on. Now once you set this thing up, you can just access it kind of like a hard drive, and I'll demonstrate that for you guys, because you could just map your network drive and don't really need to go here. But there's a lot of things this thing can do. So I just want to concentrate on the main thing, so this video won't be 2 hours long, essentially. Alright, so we're going to click start to create a pool. So now we get to RAID type, and you could literally make an entire video just on RAID itself. But in a nutshell, RAID is RAID stands for redundant array of independent disks. And what it's asking for is like, what do you want from these 4 drives? In this case, I have 4 drives. You could get away with putting less in here, and then you would have different options in here. But because I have 4 drives, so for instance, if I wanted to do RAID 5, it says I need at least 3 drives. So if I had 2 drives in here, RAID 5 would obviously not be an option. That's what I'm talking about. But basically what RAID is asking for is like, are you looking for maximum storage, maximum fault tolerance, maximum performance, or a combination thereof? Like, what are you looking for? How do you want us to configure it? And this one will vary drastically on the user. So if you're someone that wants performance and you want fault tolerance, well, RAID 10 would be a pretty good choice, because it's RAID. The reason why it's called RAID 10 is because it's RAID 1 and RAID 0 combined. Because it's data stripping and data mirroring combined. And that's why they call it RAID 10. And then you have RAID 6, which is also fault tolerance of 2. It's not as fast as RAID 10, but it has the fault tolerance of 2. RAID 5 has a fault tolerance of 1. But you might be wondering, well, why don't you get a higher fault tolerance? Well, the problem is, if I get RAID 10, for instance, I have 4 8 TB drives in here. I'm actually going to lose 2 of those drives just for backup and performance. So really, I'm going to get 16 terabytes of storage versus 32. So I put 4 8 TB in here, but I got like a very fast, secure 16 terabytes out of it. And all of this stuff that you set up, it shows up as one drive. So when we access it, you guys will see what I'm talking about. But basically, that's what it's asking you in a nutshell. Depending on what you want, it's best to do your own research. But this case, I'm actually going to do SHR. Now, SHR is Synology's hybrid RAID. And basically, it actually allows for different sizes of drives as well. So they don't all have to be the same size, which is pretty cool. With RAID, they all have to be the same size. Yeah, so it just depends what you're looking for. And again, this could be like a whole long video. I could do SHR too, but I don't want to lose that much space. I just want to lose just enough space where if something happens, I will replace that hard drive quickly enough that I won't lose my other data. But if 2 of the hard drives fail, I've lost everything on here. So it really depends what you're doing. Because whatever I put on this, I actually have other hard drives. I put on other hard drives. So really at the end of the day, if everything failed on this, I still had another backup. Unless my other backup also failed at the same time, then I'd be toast. But I'm going to go with SHR, which is very similar to RAID 5. But I'm going to try SHR just because I haven't tried it. So we'll just do that. I could put a description in here. I'm not going to. I'm going to click next. And it's asking me which drives do you want. Now you might be wondering, why is it showing as 7.3 terabytes if I put 8 terabytes in here? Well, this is not a Synology thing. This is a hard drives that are sold, whether it's Synology, whether it's Western Digital, whether it's Seagate or whatever. The way they advertise is it's kind of like the metric system in a sense. I forget what they call it, but it's kind of like the metric system where they assume 1,000 megabytes is 1 gigabyte, 1,000 gigabytes is 1 terabyte. However, computers don't read it that way. Computers read in the power of 2s. They read in binary, which is in the power of 2s. And in the computer world, 1,000 megabytes is not 1 gigabyte. 1,024 megabytes is 1 gigabyte because 1,024 is a power of 2. 1,000 is not a power of 2. I'm talking about the exponent. So because it's advertised as 8 terabytes, they're really saying like 8,000 gigabytes, which each one of those they're saying is each gigabyte is 1,000 megabytes. But really, like, you start losing space because it's not. And again, it's not a Synology thing. It's everyone does it like that. So this is what I can expect. So if I do SHR, I'm going to get 21.8 terabytes of usable space. So if I click back and I click SHR2, I'm going to get 14.5 terabytes of space, which should be the same as if I did RAID 10. 14.5 terabytes. And that's really what it is. Think of fault tolerance as I'm basically losing an equivalent of a hard drive of space. So if I have a fault tolerance of 1, I've basically lost that equivalent of a hard drive of space. So I'm going to do SHR, which gives me enough fault tolerance for what I'm putting on here. So if I were to lose everything, I'm fine. And that's what I'm going to pick. But again, you guys decide. And I feel like I already talked too much about this anyways. Modified, no, that's fine. I'm just going to say max. Volume description, no, it's fine. I'm not going to say anything. Okay, so then it says, the file system that you want. I'm just going to go with recommended. And we can encrypt this volume if you want it encrypted, or we don't have to encrypt it. So it really just depends what you're putting on here, if you want it encrypted or not. So yeah, make sure the encryption vault is available during startup to allow for the auto unlock. So I'm not going to encrypt it because it might affect its performance. I'm not putting anything on here that's super sensitive, so I'm okay with that. Okay, so I'm going to click apply. and it says, are you sure everything's going to be erased? I'm going to click OK, and we're going to go from here.
12 seconds later.
So while it's optimizing in the background, we'll look at File Station, and we'll create a shared folder and everything. Let's talk about that real quick. So if I open up File Station, we look at Home, and we look at Homes. These are shared folders that I can now access from Windows Explorer, or if I had a Mac, I can go find it from Finder. So basically, I'm going to open up Windows Explorer. I'm going to type in this IP address without the port for / and then that IP address, and then it will show me these two folders. The same way I see it here is the same way I see it here. So if I click on Home, there's nothing in here, as you guys could see. Now, at this parent level, I cannot create a folder. I can't put anything here. I can only see what's here. But once I go inside, I could now create stuff. So I could save stuff here. I could create a folder. I could say test. I can open this up. I can make a text file if I wanted to. Call it ABC. Open that up. Type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Click save. And now it's in here. And when I go in here, now I will actually see it in here. If I double click this, it'll download it to my computer. And I could click open file. And it will show up here. So there's that. Now, if you're wondering, and we'll talk about map network drives in a second. If you're wondering, well, how do you create another folder at this level? Well, you basically need to click create and do create shared folder from here. Or you could go to control panel, shared folder, and then create it from here, create shared folder. So it's up to you. So you could do create shared folder, and then over here, I'm going to put a lot of video files on this. So I'm just going to call this file, the folder named video. You could put a description. I'm going to say enable recycle bin. I'm not going to say hide. Click next. I'm going to say skip for encrypting it. I don't want to encrypt it. In my case, you guys decide if you want to encrypt it or not. I will enable the data checksum for advanced data integrity. I'm not going to enable file compression because that typically affects performance. Usually it does. Okay, will result in lower system performance. Okay, so I'm going to click next. I'm going to click next. And then I can say, oh, if I don't want someone to access it, I could click no access and stuff. But that's fine. Because I'm logging in as an admin, I'm good to go. So now the video folder is here. So now if I go to over here to the file station, well, there's video here, and there's a recycle bin right there as well. So now when I go here, if I just click F5 to refresh this, video comes up, and now I could save all my files in here if I want to. And then obviously make as many folders as you want at that top level. And then we're going to map this, so I won't have to type this in every time. So I'm going to copy paste this. I'm going to click on this PC because you need to be at this PC level to do it. And then I'm going to click this menu button, and I'm going to click map network drive. There are batch scripts that can do this to automate stuff as well. But I'm just showing you guys just a normal way of doing it. Pick a letter that you want. Let's say I want my V, because V for video. I would have to type this in. I cannot make a shared map drive at this level. So if I click finish, it's going to say, hey, I can't find what you're looking for. So you can only create it at this level or below. So you would need to create that shared folder unless you wanted to use the home one, the one that it came with on default, like this file station home. You can map to that as well. But I'm not going to do that. I created a video one, and I'm going to click finish, and now it's going to map it. So when I click on this PC, now I have my V drive, and I'm good to go. And again, the very first time you log into this thing, it will ask you for your username and password, and then you could click store or save, so it won't ask you again, or you could not do that, and it'll ask you every single time. But I could literally now use this as a hard drive. So now 4 of these hard drives are working together. In case one of them fails, there's backup, and I essentially have almost 21 terabytes of available space to me because the disk station software also took a little bit of space. So now I'm going to unplug the Ethernet port. We're going to plug it into the 10 gig port. So this thing's automatically installed. I don't need to do anything Synology did everything for me. However, when I switch to ports, it does change the IP address. And so in order to find a new IP address, I would basically need to go to Synology Assistant. Well, there's one way of doing it. And then they'll tell me. So it looks like it's 1.139 now. So I would just change this to 1.139. And then it's going to ask me to log in again. All right, so yeah, so I'm basically logged in. However, by doing this, the shortcut that I made will no longer work. So if I go to this PC, this will no longer work. So another way I can make the shortcut is if I use the server name, which you could get here, which you could get from control panel server name right here, or you could get it from the Synology Assistant right here. So instead of typing the IP address for mapping the network drive, I can actually just type in, let's just do it to the Z drive just for kicks. I could just type in the server name, and then it will figure out the IP name. And the first time it will ask you to log in, but you should be good to go after that. So assuming you click remember my information basically. But yeah, so now the 242 won't work, but this one will work. And the cool thing about using the server name is if I switch it back to the other IP address, it'll still actually work. So that way, I mean, this is still trying to look for it. It's going to say, oh, I can't find it. But I will basically disconnect this. You just right click and do disconnect. So can't find that, so I'll just do right click disconnect. And then now this will work no matter which port I basically connected to. And this obviously also works on a Mac as well. You can reach the Synology with a Mac as well. It's not just on a Windows PC. So that's the other cool thing about this. So now I'm on my fast computer. This computer is capable of running up to 10 gigabits per second. It has a 10 gig Ethernet port. It has a 10 gig switch. The Synology is hooked up to the 10 gig switch with a Cat7 Ethernet cable, and so is my computer. So I have a full 10 gigabit per second LAN connection. Now I'm going to do a speed test. I'm going to copy over a file. So we'll actually copy GH6. There's a bunch of files in here. So if I go to properties, this is 227 gigabytes. So I'll copy this just so, and we'll just talk about it as it's copying. So there's a bunch of files in here, different folders, and different stuff that I have basically recorded and stuff. So that's going to copy over. Now, if I did an individual file, it would actually copy it faster if it was just one file. But because there's multiple files, that actually typically copies it slower because for every new file, it has a new header within the computer essentially. So there's more things the computer needs to do when there's a lot of files versus when there's a single file. So when I did copy a single file earlier, it was averaging right around 550 megabytes per second. So this one's in the 400s, 500s, goes down to like 400 and then goes up to like 550 or something. So let's say if we had to average it out to around 470. Okay, now it's slowing down and speeding up. Well, you guys get the idea. Now, this is in megabytes per second. The way I know that is because it's a uppercase B. So uppercase B typically implies bytes, and lowercase b typically implies bits. So the connection is a 10 gigabit. So if I were to take a calculator, so let's open that up. Let's open up the calculator. So let's just assume they were saying 10 gigabits per second is 10,000. So if I were to, that's in bits. So in order to get that to bytes, I need to divide that by 8. So really it's 1,250 megabytes per second or 1.25 gigabytes per second if we use the metric style that they use. So this is copying right now less than half of that. And that could be for a number of reasons. So number one is the RAID configuration it's in. So if I did RAID 10, it would actually copy it faster. Another reason is I don't have any NVMe SSDs in there that's caching the data, because if it was doing that, that would speed it up. If I was doing a lot of things within the Synology, more RAM would help that as well. So it's a number of things. However, this is still incredibly fast for copying a bunch of files. It's still very, very fast. And in order to prove that point, I'm going to close that, cancel that. and I have a project open in Premiere. The project itself, the file that I saved is on my D drive, just because that's where I save all my YouTube projects. But the files themselves, which is the important thing that matters, those come from the Synology. So if I right click and do reveal and explore, you guys could see that that's on the network drive 192.168.1.139, and that is on the Synology itself. And if I pick any file, doesn't matter which file it is, you guys could see that again, DS923P video. So everything is running off this. It doesn't matter which file I click on. All the video files are coming directly from the Synology, and you guys could see that. Now, typically I run this off my D drive, but in this case, I wanted to test to see how good it was, the Synology, with this connection. So I'm going to press play just for a quick second. This part is not rendered. The green part was rendered. So I'm going to press play on the non-rendered part. Hey, what's up, guys? I'm going to unbox and review this foldable, portable. So you guys could see that was fine. And then if I scroll, like if I move throughout the timeline, you guys could see that I'm not going to play the rendered part because that's just going to work. I mean, if you guys want, I could press play on it. So, because it's rendered, I didn't want it to be like, oh, it's kind of cheating because you rendered that, so that's why I didn't want to play that part. But the unrendered part, you guys could see that the yellow line, for anyone that used Premiere Pro, you could see like it's genuinely really fast. It's very, very responsive for something that's on the network. And I could go somewhere and press play, and you guys could see. So it's actually a usable thing, which is kind of crazy, that I can just store it directly. Because normally what I do is I put the files on my D drive. And then when I finish editing, then I just back it up on my Synology drives, on the DS220 pluses that I had. I typically would back it up on that, but now I'll start backing up on this 923 plus. But I could literally just copy it directly there and just use the projects from here because it's actually like fast. And for the recycle bin, in case you guys are wondering, if I copied these files over, right? Let's say if I clicked delete, where's my delete button? And it says like, oh, are you sure you want to permanently delete this folder? I'm like, yeah, sure. So it disappears, and I try to go to recycle bin, and bam, it's still right here. So if I right click on this, I don't really see the option to restore from here. I'm gonna try to copy paste this back. Okay, so I guess I could copy paste it back from the recycle bin. I was looking for a restore button like the normal recycle bin, but even if you couldn't do that, you could, if you go to the Synology itself, if you click on recycle, you can actually see the files over here, and then you could basically restore them directly from here. So you could click on that and you could click restore, and it'll actually like go back. It says, well, it's because I was already doing that anyways, but you guys get the point. So you could restore it from here as well. So this is a 10 gig connection. You can also run this from your Mac, so it doesn't matter. In fact, I have a Mac with a 10 gig connection. We'll do a quick one with that, and then we'll just wrap up the video. All right, so before we wrap up, I connected it to the gigabit port, so now the Synology is no longer using its optional 10 gig port. So I'm going to do a file transfer, just like I did earlier, just so you guys could see the speed difference. So now it's being capped to just over 110 megabytes per second, which is in line with the math. So if they count a gigabit port as 1000, let's just assume that, not 1024. If I divide that by 8, it gives us 125 megabytes per second. And this is capping, I mean, it's just underneath that. So it's pretty much the bottleneck itself is the gigabit port itself and not the actual hard drives, because if I use the 10 gig port, it can go much faster. And in case you guys are wondering, let's take another look at Premiere. Just to see. So I'm scrolling. It's still not too bad, actually. Let me go super fast. Okay, so this file is fast. Let's see if there's multiple things going on. What's up, guys? I'm gonna unbox and review this foldable. Okay, it's still usable.
Interest and some
Wow, it's actually going better than I thought it was. Okay, this part was lagging. Okay, there was a bit of a lag here when I pressed space between. But honestly, this was better than what I was expecting. I was expecting it to be slower, but obviously it's not as good as when I connected it to the 10 gig port, but still actually very surprisingly very usable. But yeah, this thing's awesome. There's a bunch of apps to choose from. I mean, there's just so many things you can do with this thing. It's fantastic. But as its main function, a backup drive, something you can sync. Oh, and I should mention, there's an app called Cloud Sync on this. And if you want to sync this with, let's say you have online storage, let's say you have Dropbox or Google Drive or something else, you can actually set them to sync with each other as well. So there's so many options with this thing. You could set up that, there's all this like antivirus and everything like that. There's a lot of stuff you can do. You could set up the Plex. If you want to set this up as a media server, you could do that. There's just so many things you can do with this thing, but at its core, it's a dependable, long-lasting, just external storage that offers protection through RAID, really. And it's been fantastic. Again, I've been using Synology for many, many years. I've been happy with them. So I imagine this one should be just as good, if not better, than the DS220 Pluses or the DS214 Play that I had. With that, thank you guys for watching. Smash that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.